let's talk a little bit about what we know about the brain and its ability to feel or sense pain. In medical school, we all learned that you can do surgery on the brain without any anesthesia because the brain has no pain receptors of its own. So the brain takes the information that's coming from our five senses and interprets that information as pain. So it's really interesting. Studies with the functional MRI scanner, which gives you real-time images of which centers in the brain are active, shows us that our brain is not able to distinguish between emotional pain and physical pain. The same centers light up in either case. Once more, even newer studies are showing that our brain is not capable of differentiating between our pain or the pain of another, especially inside the experience of empathy. Empathy then becomes a state of shared suffering. When you look at the brain in a state of pain or suffering, what you see is that all of these negative centers in the cortex and the subcortex light up, and these centers are elaborating all sorts of negative neurotransmitters. The brain is actually being depleted. If unchecked, this will lead to a state of emotional exhaustion, which is one of the hallmark symptoms of burnout. Typically, we're taught that we can't get too close to our patients because their pain will overwhelm us, and then we won't be able to make good clinical decisions. We won't be able to stay objective. And so what we currently do is we sort of consciously stop the experience and we move on to the practical matters of performing the service of the history and the physical exam. Unfortunately, that doesn't change the fact that our brain is still experiencing this state of empathy, which is emotionally depleting. Neuroscientists that have looked at this realize that there's another type of empathy that we can actually use to our advantage, and this is the state of cognitive empathy. You see, in the state of affective empathy, the experience is outside of our conscious control. Studies have shown that by simply asking one question, what would it be like for me to be in this person's shoes, or what it would be like if I had these problems, moves the experience from the subcortex and the subconscious into the higher levels of the brain in the cortex and prefrontal cortex. So inside the experience of cognitive empathy, we start to get curious about the pain. This will naturally lead us to a place of compassion. And compassion is nothing more than the desire that things be better for another person, a person who is in pain, a person who is in suffering. We just wish that we could lessen their pain or their suffering. This experience of compassion causes all the negative centers that are lit up in the state of empathy to start to down-regulate, and other centers in the higher levels of the brain, in the cortex, start to light up and drip amazingly positive neurotransmitters like oxytocin and dopamine and serotonin and neuropeptide X. And these centers are related to our experience of pleasure, or they stimulate our reward centers. And so what happens is that we start to sort of come alive, and we become positively primed by these neurotransmitters to feel incredibly good. It's important that we stay in this experience of compassion for a moment or two so that we can take advantage of neuroplasticity to sort of cement this experience and make these neural connections in our brain. And once we're full of compassion, we can say or do something compassionate that will make things better for the person in front of us. And this changes everything for the patient, but even more importantly, for ourselves,